All righty, let's get started. This is our Tuesday, March 30th, 2021. And we have renamed this now COVID-19, a road to recovery. How do we get out of this? We're actually on our way up and out with the vaccine rollout, which is really quite encouraging. And I kind of want to share with everyone what we're seeing out there and what is important as we actually really try to make this a very stable, progressive recovery where we don't backslide. If you actually want to follow me, there's my Instagram and Twitter account. And you can also send me an email at AskDrV.us. I do answer my emails. I also take questions there or suggestions or even things that people want to actually talk about during this presentation. So the structure of the presentation is 20 minutes or so, followed by Q&A, and we usually end right around 9 o'clock. You can ask by putting your questions in the chat icon or the Q&A icon. You have access to both now. So if you see something or hear something during this presentation, you can go ahead and actually put it in either one of those chat or Q&A, and I'll go through both. During this presentation, everyone will be in listen mode, so everyone can actually hear. All right, our intention and outcome is the same. Our intention is to keep webinar participants informed with COVID-19 science that will help you and your family stay healthy during this pandemic. The outcome is that you're motivated to really look at your action plan and constantly adjust it. And similarly, if you actually have an action plan for a broader community like a school or a homeowners association or a church or a business. Now, it's really, really important that at this point in time, we do not let our guard down. We have roughly about 50% of the senior population and about 10 or 20% of the non-senior population that has received at least one shot. But we are not close to herd immunity at this point in time. So it is really, really important that you stick with the washing hands, wearing a mask, 6 feet social distancing. None of us actually know who's vaccinated and who's not vaccinated. And our goal is to really get out of this and move forward and not take a step back like what we're seeing in other countries. Florida has actually been a bellwether for national COVID cases, and COVID cases there are on the rise, unfortunately. We have March Madness going on. Basketball is back. One of the coaches for Baylor, for the women's team, says, let's just forget the COVID test at the Final Four. Those players undergo daily COVID tests that are actually playing in March Madness. And I would say to her, no way, no way. It's just not worth it to play a basketball game, and you could wind up with some serious consequences because young people are getting very sick. Lastly, the CDC director actually, said that she's scared. The word that she used was, "I'm scared of an impending doom and a fourth wave." So let's actually all chip in and actually keep all of our vigilance in place as we move forward so we can begin to sort of progress out of this. Just to update, about 128 million cases globally, and 2.8 million people have died of COVID-19 around the world. That's astonishing. In the United States, we've gone up over 30 million cases. And this week we will hit right around 550,000 deaths. Again, we're about 4% of the world population. We're about 25% of the deaths. All right, as you know, COVID-19 is highly contagious. Minimum time of exposure is 45 seconds or less with some of the mutations. And about 60 to 80% of the people who get COVID-19, get exposed to COVID-19 actually get it. For those of you that are new to this presentation, I just want to share some of these slides, and that is Droplet and Airborne. And the droplets are larger particles that drop within 3 feet, and airborne goes out further. This is what it actually looks like. So if you think about this person being COVID positive, he could be talking, coughing, playing an instrument, yelling. and these particles then go out. They actually affix and attach to whatever may be in his way. Maybe he's at a gym and there's gym equipment. Maybe it's an outdoor park bench. Maybe it's a door handle. Maybe it's a gas station pump. And then someone comes along behind later and actually picks up those particles, or may actually be there in his space when he's there and actually inhale some of these particles. So these are all the things that lead to COVID-19 and why masking is so important. Like I've said, these are the 6 clusters of symptoms. The main cluster, which is asymptomatic, is about 50%. So outside of people being asymptomatic, they can have flu-like symptoms without a fever, flu-like symptoms with a fever, and they can also have gastrointestinal symptoms where they just feel like they have nausea, vomiting, diarrhea. Maybe they ate something wrong. Those folks are normally have very self-limited disease. Then the patients that have fatigue, confusion, and combined abdominal and respiratory symptoms are the ones that actually get into trouble, usually need to be admitted, may need to go to the ICU, and may possibly pass. A lot of people ask me about the loss of smell and loss of taste or loss of appetite. That is not 100%. That probably occurs about 40 or 50% of the time, but is not 100%. COVID toes is is basically a whole body vascular inflammation that leads to reddish blue discoloration. This is COVID-19 until proven otherwise. It's most common in children. Mask. I want to be really, really clear. We need to keep on with our masking. I recommend that everyone upgrade their mask to the KN95 mask if possible, which is in the lower left-hand side. That is about 80 to 90% effective, where the masks on the top row are 20 to 35% effective. I know masks are uncomfortable, but I tell folks this is what it looks like when we intubate and actually put you on a ventilator. Now, there was recently, just as of yesterday, an interview on CNN with Sanjay Gupta, and I don't know how many of you actually were able to see it, but Dr. Redfield, who was head of the CDC, actually said in that interview that he thinks that COVID-19, and I agree, was probably in Wuhan in September or October before the lockdown. So there were a lot of things that came out in that CNN report. I would strongly suggest, it's about a 1-hour program, I would strongly suggest that you actually listen to that, because it's kind of a retrospective on, what we did well and what we didn't do well. And it gives us a lot of guidance as far as what we need to make sure is put in place moving forward, because this will not be our last pandemic. Now, let's talk about COVID-19 replicating in your body. The virus has a fatty coating around it with a spike protein. That spike protein attaches to a receptor, and that is how it actually gains entry. It unlocks the cell, opens it up, and allows it to get in the cell. Then at the ribosome, it actually begins to replicate, and it replicates the virus, it replicates the outer shell, and it also replicates the spike protein. Once it duplicates itself, it goes out, and then it goes attacks another cell. And this happens over and over again, and you have over 1 trillion, with a T, cells in your body. So this occurs over and over and over again. Now, let's talk about the COVID variants. So I've been doing some research so we could actually go over each of them. The UK variant is the one that has increased transmission, 50% increased transmission. And it actually, the monoclonal antibodies still seem to work. There is a Brazilian variant, which seems to sometimes escape monoclonal antibody use. And so it doesn't seem to be something that you can actually give someone monoclonal antibodies and really see a impact with. The South African variant also has 50% increased transmission. This also has decreased response to monoclonal antibodies. So this is very, very important. Decreased, not none at all, but just decreased. And the California variant has 20% increased transmissibility, and also moderate reduction in neutralizing with convalescence antibodies. And there's another California variant that has 20% increased transmissibility, and again, moderate reduction in its ability to respond to monoclonal antibodies. So this is why you're seeing a difference in some of these countries with what they call a fourth wave. And I think that one of the things that's really important, and this occurs with pandemics all the time, it behooves all of us to actually help the least of us. If you notice in this list, there's no Taiwan variant, there's no New Zealand variant, there's no South Korea variant, because those countries have all done a very good job and clamped down on their infections. So you get variants in places where the infection actually is out of control, because there's more replicating of the virus. And the more times the virus reproduces itself, the more opportunities it has to actually improve itself. And that's basically what's going on. So right now, these vaccines work by the messenger RNA vaccines are coded for the spike protein, because the spike protein is how it gains entry into the cell. So when you get vaccinated, you actually produce the spike protein, and then your body recognizes it as foreign and develops antibodies and attacks it. So now your body is actually ready for COVID-19 in the community. Johnson & Johnson uses the adenovirus, which is a common cold virus, combines it with genetic material from COVID-19, and the combination teaches your body to generate antibodies that attack the COVID-19 spike protein so the virus cannot attach, and it renders COVID-19 harmless. Now, when we look at all of these vaccines that are being tested, right now, the Pfizer, the Moderna, and the Johnson & Johnson are the ones that actually are approved for emergency use authorization. The Pfizer and Moderna were not tested during the mutations, and they are 94 to 95% effective, where Johnson & Johnson, the three numbers of 72, 66, and 57 is the US 72, 66 UK, and 57 is South Africa. So the South Africa variant is really something that is a little bit different than the other ones. We will probably see the Janssen trial, which is going on right now, is 2 doses of the Johnson & Johnson to see if a second dose actually makes a difference. The Novavax trial is currently going on and near completion. And I think that we will see, most likely, Novavax will be the next company to actually submit for emergency use authorization. Possibly Oxford and AstraZeneca, but AstraZeneca and the AstraZeneca vaccine is going to have a lot of problems. They had a lot of problems during their actual clinical protocol. I'm not sure if they'll ever get emergency use authorization in the United States, but I suspect Novavax will. Now, when are you fully vaccinated? You are fully vaccinated and you have full efficacy 2 weeks after your last shot. That's very, very important. 2 weeks after your last shot is when you are fully vaccinated. Now, once you're fully vaccinated, you still need to wear a mask. You still need to stay 6 feet away from people that you do not live with and avoid medium and large size in-person gatherings. You are able, though, to get into small gatherings with people that are already vaccinated. So that's really, really important. Now, I wanted to start talking about this a little bit because there's a lot of literature. All of us have friends and family that are either have expressed that they're not getting vaccinated or that they're hesitant to get vaccinated. And these are people that we love. So I wanted to talk about what to say to these folks, right? And so one thing I think is very important is that, that we don't judge them and that we allow them to actually speak and actually talk about their concerns. Some things that are very important is to encourage them to talk with their doctor. Again, sometimes it's another person's voice that actually matters or has the authority or that makes the difference to them. Also reminding them that qualified people have studied the vaccine. Remind them that medical professions stand by it, and most physicians have actually gotten the vaccine. The other thing that's important for people to actually think about in their risk versus reward calculation is what's going to cause me more damage, getting COVID-19 or actually getting the vaccine. And COVID-19, getting ill from COVID-19 is much more serious than reactions from the vaccine. You want to actually also point out for some people, it's very important that if I get vaccinated, then I'm protecting others, or maybe I'm protecting an elderly family member. And also, we all want to get back to life more, we all want to get back to normalcy, right? And that's a major driver for some people in actually getting vaccinated. Like, let's get things rolling and let's get things back to normal. And so you want to make sure that, for your family and friends that may be hesitant or resistant to a vaccine, that you really keep a non-judgmental space for them to actually have the conversation. One of the things that I'm actually going to do for Thursday is get the information on how many vaccines have been administered worldwide, because I believe now that it's probably over 1 billion. And so again, the numbers are sort of staggering as far as the number of people that have actually had this vaccine at this point in time. Now, this is interesting. Serbia said, anybody wants the vaccine, just make your way to Serbia. So you see these pictures of foreigners actually traveling to Serbia to get the vaccine. They are waiting in line. This is in Europe. So in Europe, the AstraZeneca vaccine is actually approved. So they're actually waiting in line. Entire families from Bosnia, Montenegro, Macedonia, Albania, traveling across countries to actually get the vaccine. Oprah said she had the vaccine, and she said that 30 hours afterwards, she felt some fever and lethargy. And then she said afterwards, she felt like a superwoman. So she had some mild symptoms and felt dramatically better once that was over. So she actually shared how grateful she was in being fully vaccinated. So we're also looking, and I'm keeping an eye on what's happening over in Brazil. Brazil has actually vaccinated less than about 2% of their population. COVID-19 is spreading like wildfire in Brazil, and a lot of the hospitals are overwhelmed. I would not be surprised that Brazil actually, winds up needing some type of international help. The government there has had a botched vaccine rollout now several times. It's a space to watch, because again, it's a breeding ground for variants. So it's very important that we as other countries come together for other countries such that we can actually clamp down this worldwide. Another country is Papua New Guinea, which has only about 500 doctors for 9 million people. And they are also dealing with COVID-19 and their physicians and healthcare system being overwhelmed. Now, a lot of you have asked this question, which is why I added the slide. Once I get the COVID-19 vaccine, does it stop the transmission? So what they've decided to do, which I think is a great idea, is they are recruiting thousands of college students who love to party and hang out together, and they are vaccinating them and testing and seeing how much do each of these vaccines, because each of them could be different, how much do each of these vaccines actually stop the transmission of COVID-19. We do have data out of Israel for the Pfizer vaccine. For the Pfizer vaccine, it's been found to be 94% effective in decreasing transmission. Patients actually who get the vaccine and are later infected are found to have a lower viral load in their nasopharyngeal area, and they also shed virus for a shorter period of time. So fewer days that they shed virus, and also less virus to shed. But we need to find that out for all of the rest of the vaccines. This was also on the CNN special. I really encourage everyone to watch that CNN special. This was actually quite painful to actually watch. Dr. Birx actually said that every COVID-19 death over 100,000 could have been prevented. You know, it's shocking to hear her say that when she was one of the people in the room that was a decision maker and part of the strategy team. That's a lot of preventable deaths. I mean, we're not done yet. So I'm sure we're going to be talking about over 500,000 preventable deaths, which is just really, really tragic. Now, we had a conversation last week about traveling. Please make sure that you actually check, if you do any international traveling, what is the actual criteria to get back on the plane. A lot of times you have to actually get a COVID test. So this particular family got a COVID test. The husband was positive and the wife was negative. So he got quarantined somewhere else on the beach, and she got quarantined. She was at the resort. And there's also the unexpected, in some cases, the unexpected expense of actually having to stay 2 weeks in a country that you were not expecting to stay 2 weeks in. So, you know, if you are vaccinated and you intend upon traveling, I recommend to everybody, I try to keep it in the US until this all kind of gets a little bit more worked out. Altogether in the United States, we have administered 147 million vaccines. So that's where we are. There's been about 190 million vaccines that have been delivered to the states, and 147 million in the arms of Americans. Now, a lot of people ask me this too about laminating their vaccine card. So Staples is doing free lamination of your vaccine card until about, I think, April 2nd, until essentially Friday. So one, make sure you've completed your immunization series. Make sure you verify the information on your vaccine card is accurate before they actually laminate it. Also, make sure you make a copy of the front and the back of the card, and you save that. Now, when I went to Staples and had mine laminated just last week for free. They actually did give me a copy of the front and the back. I also noticed when I looked at my card, which I thought was kind of odd, no one had ever written my name or date of birth on my card. I don't know, I think that just has to do with how fast everything was going at the particular time, but my card could have been anybody's card. So I sort of hand wrote my name and my date of birth on there. And then I laminated it, have a laminated copy, and then have a paper copy that I took a picture of and downloaded it to my photos. So you want to make sure that you actually really keep this, because I would not be surprised if this card is not needed later to get access to certain things. All right, let's go to Q&A.